I don't see how the ending is bad at all. In fact, it's not even really hopeful. It's not even a happy, idealistic ending. Especially with what we know happens in 2. He's not exactly in a position he wants to be in.
He's in a dark place.
He is. It's not an ocean.
No,
he's not a lake. It's an ocean.
Phil, he's in the dark place.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's the whole part of it.
That was the joke.
Yeah.
That's how the other thing, though, about that ending, I'm going to confront you, Tavin.
Yeah.
He didn't kill his wife.
Okay, so we're getting into this. All right? We're getting into this.
She's pretty attractive. Alice
She's
Wake.
attractive. Yeah. She's an attractive wife. Yeah. Alan Wake kills his wife in the beginning of the game. And his psychosis breaks, and he does go crazy or whatever. Not in the ways that, like, the game tries to tell you that Alan Wake is crazy, because I don't think any of that happens. But this whole game is a huge metaphor for alcoholism, the effects of fame, and domestic abuse. That's the whole point of this franchise. Is Alan Wake is a domestic abuser. Mr. Scratch is the dark side of Alan Wake that comes out
when he's drunk
and beats his wife. And they dive even deeper to this in 2. Obviously, because Mr. Scratch has a total screen time of 5 seconds.
No, he's in there a lot.
Where?
Dude.
Oh, he is Alan Wake? He has 100% of the screen time, actually. No. Even the Barry character it plays into this metaphor. Barry is not Alan's friend. Barry is this greedy, selfish agent type who is pushing Alan to dive deeper into this spiral that he has. And
because it's producing good books.
Because it's producing good books and a lot of money, right? But it's for Alan Wake as the man, he's on a spiral. He's getting worse and worse. He's diving deeper into his alcoholism.
It's that like dark part of the artist, right?
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And it's kind of weird because Alan Wake also kind of serves as like a narrative stand-in for Sam Lake. So someone check in on Sam Lake's family. But I don't.
I've heard he's actually a genuinely lovely man.
Oh no, he seems like a really joyful person. But sometimes the joyful people are the ones you got to look out for.
I will push back because the notion that he abused his wife is even disproven within the game itself during an audio recording. There's an audio recording when she was first establishing connection with Dr. Hartman to get treatment for him, and she's like in a therapy section. She basically says how he's gotten drunk. Alcoholism is a definite point of that. But how he would just get angry on a fly and be moody. But specifically, he asks, so he's physically abusive to you? Because they were bringing up the fact that he hit a paparazzi not that long ago. And she specifically says, no, he never does that. I wish he did that because then he would confront him with something that he can't just run away from. And Alice is a character.
I missed this part.
Yeah, that's it. Alice is a completely different character, especially if you go to some of the stuff in the second game. I'll bring it up for Barry. It specifies how Barry is someone who helps her transition back into her own life through little subtext things that you find as Sokka in the game, like little collectibles.
Side note: as soon as he mentioned, game 2. As soon as he mentioned Dr. Hartman, I immediately thought of Family Guy.
Oh my God, you're right. It's the same guy.
Is that the doctor character?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, Dr.
I would push back on that, Connor, simply because victims of domestic abuse hide their domestic abuse.
But the issue was that it was in a therapy session, and he seemed to have not always, and it was in a therapy session. It wasn't
not always, but often. I've got 2 people, one currently right now.
No, I'm completely understanding. Yes,
it happens a lot.
Yes, kicked you.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole I gotta save my wife, putting himself in the narrative. He's spiritually keeping his wife alive because he can't come to grips with the fact that she's gone. That's what the whole he spends the week writing in the dark place or whatever. That's him just frantically panicking and going, it's a story. Now I have to write it to keep her alive.
But he writes himself into the story as the protagonist with the motivation of trying to save his wife. Because he can't come to grips
with the fact that he's the bad guy.
He did it, yeah.
But that's also a system of him trying to curb against the dark presence and create a path doing his own writing rather than being manipulated.
But the dark presence is him.
But it's not. It clearly sets him apart as another being that existed far before he was even alive.
Personally, I don't think the game clearly does anything.
Clearly,
yeah. You're taking a lot at face value.
And also, Connor...
But this is reading too much into it over things that aren't given
Connor,
to
the
you in
entire
narrative.
fiction of the game is played into the story that Alan Wake wrote. So you have to take any type of exposition as Alan Wake is the narrator, is the narrator in that. So when he starts pulling these elements of Thomas Zane and who was Thomas Zane's wife's name?
Barbara,
and the Barbara character, which isn't actually Barbara, is a evil woman.
Right. It's the what do they call it?
These are all
the dark presence.
Yeah, it's the dark presence.
Yeah, but like. She's like
they call it the dark presence in that.
Okay, yeah. All of these are elements Alan Wake has inserted into his own narrative so that he can justify his real world actions.
I'll give you half points on that because again, going into it, it's kind of unclear what is his creation and what is, the nature of the secondary world.
You got to think if is Alan Wake a truly reliable narrator?
Oh, he's not at all.
Not entirely, no. But there's no actual indication other than him being angry that he abuses his wife, and he constantly it shows that
Connor, he's an unreliable narrator. He's literally the narrator.
Yeah, which brings into question anything. But like, there's no other anything besides him being angry that he beat his wife. You're just kind of reaching for that as like an element, even though it could be just not being able to facilitate a proper relationship.
I would counter with that. You're buying his excuses. He is writing these excuses, these notes, these recordings, these things into the narrative. That's him writing those things.
Yeah, but once again,
you're buying into those because you're looking for a reason for the player character to not be a bad guy.
Get woke, right? Yeah. But I feel like you're using the element of, like, he writes things, so who knows what's true and what's not, to just reach for a very, very, very specific instance of who Alan Wake is as a character and why exactly he's going through all of this. Like, there is an external presence other than just him writing everything into the, world.
What is that external presence?
He's only able to do that because of the lake. The lake has power, and it's an entrance to another world.
But the lake's not real.
The lake is real.
No, it's not.
It is real, yeah. The lake? It's a literal lake. It's a lake in a place.
The dark place is a metaphor for when he goes off the deep end and into his benders. It feels like someone else is taking over. That's what the whole idea of Mr. Scratch is.
But it doesn't even dive into that in a really dark way with his flashbacks. It's just like, she doesn't like me being out late, and when I get confronted by it, I don't deal with it in a proper way, and I shout out and get angry at her.
Even in that scene, like, he's a complete abusive jackass, like, in how he verbally accosts her. And she's just trying to keep it peaceful.
Yeah,
these are how these domestic violence situations happen. But that's how they play out.
But that's not how it just, like, you don't have one with the other. You could be a person who gets angry at your significant other and cause problems in the relationship, but then the jump to physical violence is a whole other aspect of a character that's never properly explored in this one, other than her just being angry.
But that would make me think. Do you think domestic abusers think they're bad people?
No, they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
They don't think they're doing anything wrong.
But there's a difference between acknowledging whether you're a bad or a good person and doing specific acts.
But Connor, who is crafting the narrative?
Alan Wake, influenced by the dark presence, this lake, this evil lake that has power to it.
Do you see how we're going in circles?
He's
here
just talking in circles. Yeah.
No, you're just ignoring the supernatural aspect outside of Alan Wake and solely focusing on the meta narrative.
I think what the meta narrative is, it's you said he was reading too far into it. I feel like you're reading too far into it by like, there is the supernatural presence, but it was all just a story that Alan Wake crafted.
I would argue you're not reading far enough.
That's surface level, and then it also like debates, how much are you having to reach and infer things? It doesn't exactly make a hard line to be like, this is what the story's about and trying to indicate.
I'm just saying, I don't think
that's the point of anti-realism.
Yeah, but it's not all just that.
The way you're saying Tavin is reaching too far, I think he's reaching just far enough.
But that's like, you can bring up anti-realism and absurdism. Some of those things definitely make sense, but you're like gauging how much those elements influence the plot based off your own knowledge of that kind of concept. Like you know what that means to its fullest extent, so you dive into it.
So I know what something means. So when a piece of art explores that, I'm using my knowledge.
Well, you're taking an element
of shit up.
You're not making shit up necessarily. You're inferring things, but you're stating them as fact. And like, this is what the story's about. When it's a lot more open ended than that.
I see what he's saying.
I think a lot of it is.
My issue is the physical abuse, because it never shows definitively that's it. You can infer it, but my issue when it's like, this is what it's about.
I feel like they dive way more into it in part 2. Part 2, they almost explicitly say Alan Wake is an abuser.
That's when there's more.
In this one, they don't say it as much. Mm-hmm. Probably because I don't think video games as a art form are in a place to where they can have those conversations. Because what type of stories are you getting in 2010? This is the
Brutal Legend.
This is what
Legend.
This is what The Last of Us effect is. Mm. Is it allowed video game creators to have harsher conversations or more real conversations or fully formed conversations where you didn't have to be the hero of the story. Pre Last of Us, your player character had to be the hero of the story.
Yeah.
I think. I can't think of an example where that's not the case.
Probably anti-heroes, but
Shadow of the Colossus. But like even then, that's to save the princess stand-in, right? Like,
yeah, that's the
like
flip on its head.
They give you a moral reason to stand in. You cannot play as a inherently immoral character, and that's who I think Alan Wake is. He's inherently immoral, but he's not gonna tell his story that way. His story, he's the hero because we're all the heroes of our own story. Can I also say I love the meta commentary on writing through collectibles?
Yes.
Through the manuscript pages, you find them out of order.
Yeah.
I think that's genius because writing, the process of writing is trusting the process, right? You gotta start writing and then keep writing, and you will eventually find what that story is about.
You could eventually find that the first thing you wrote is like the end of that story, where you're like, oh, it'll make sense later. Oh, I have this idea for here. This can take place right here.
Or what I tend to do when I'm writing, and it's so convenient that I'm playing this game while I'm in a playwriting class right now. I write a play, and it's all like, it's okay, it's fine, it's whatever. And then my ending will be really powerful, or my ending will be really good. And I'll look at the rest of my story and go, oh, this story isn't what I thought it was. So I need to go back and retool all of these other scenes that I've written.
Baby.
You know, and I gotta go retool to get at the truth of what this full narrative is.
That's art.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. And so I like to take the meta commentary of storytelling and writing all the way mechanically to the collectibles is genius. They kind of lose it a little bit on the coffee thermoses, which I don't know what the point of those are.
It's basically like backpacks from Spider-Man.
It's even less than that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
it's just like
platinum trophy.